Okay. Yalla, Habibi. We passed out the source sheet. Does everyone have a source sheet? You have it? Yes. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Jewish U class for the evening. Tonight, we're going to learn about Rambam's recipe, the recipe in Maimonides. He didn't write a cookbook. Maybe he should have. You think he should have?
Like medicinal cookbook.
A medicinal cookbook? Actually, I used to have a book. I don't have it anymore. Used to have a book that I think listed all of Rambam's medical advices.
Most of it's been debunked by modern science, you know?
Well, I think even not just according to modern science, but Torah itself, the Talmud tells us that people have changed over the years. So it's not just science. Even according to Jewish law, according to Jewish approach, we don't necessarily take Rambam's medical advice as necessarily being applicable to today.
Then our body changed.
Yeah. People change to some extent. What?
Evolution.
Yeah. We believe in evolution. It's just we believe that the evolution started with a revolution.
Really sure.
Wait.
Yeah.
Evolution's in the Torah?
No, I said we believe in evolution.
Why?
People change and evolve,
3,000
but it
years of
started with a revolution.
This is from Darwin or from the Jewish stuff?
You know what a revolution is?
What?
You know what a revolution is?
Yeah.
What?
I can't define it. I don't know.
So you don't know.
I know what it is.
Gracious Bar Elohim, the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Revolution. From that revolution point, there was an evolution. Things changed and developed, and things are not the same as it was 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Even the last 100 years, even the last 20 years, we've seen the world evolve and change. People are for sure different than they used to be. People used to be much tougher, no?
I'm asking if you're thinking this based on like secular science or based on something Jewish.
The Talmud says that people's nature have changed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
All the science in the world for years, so.
Have a science what?
No, it's like, well, maybe not anymore, but.
Science is also changing.
Or you're saying something sciencey or something Jewish. And I was like, well, like in the last century, pretty much all the scientists were Jewish. So all the famous ones.
That's also true. Right? Okay. Today we're going to take a peek at something in the Haggadah. We're getting ready for Pesach. We're getting excited. We're going to take a peek at the Charoset, which everybody knows all about it, but I find that it's something that's seldom discussed. So we are going to discuss it tonight. We're going to start in the Mishnah on the first page here in Maseches Pesachim, Daf Kuf Yud Daled. That's page 114 in the Talmud in Pesachim, which talks a lot about Pesach. So the Mishnah says, it's not the first two boxes there. We're going to skip that for now. Maybe we'll come back to that. Maybe we won't. Probably not. And the Mishnah says as follows. Now, the way it used to work is that everybody had at the Seder, instead of sharing one big table, people sat at little individual private tables. Like, you know, like in a hospital, sometimes a person, God forbids, in a hospital, they have like the little wheelie table that they can wheel over the person's bed so they can eat while they're still in the hospital bed. They had little things like that, basically. Small, private tables. Each person had their own little table. And the Seder was led, as it often is nowadays as well, by one person. And so the Mishnah tells us, the attendants, I guess they had hired help back then also, the attendants who were helping at the Seder would bring vegetables before the leader of the Seder. That is, if there weren't already vegetables there, they would bring vegetables. What would he do with those vegetables? Matadu b'chazeres, he would dip the chazeres into water or vinegar. Ad shemagil leparperes hapas, he would have something, a little bite to eat before he would reach what the Mishnah says is the dessert of the bread. What in the world is the dessert of the bread? Also known as the moror, the bitter herbs. This is what the Mishnah is talking about. Now, then, next, says the Mishnah, Heviu l'fan of matzah. Now they would do the next step of the Seder. They would bring him matzah. V'chazeres, and chazeres, which is, today we use the romaine lettuce. The Charoses and the Charoset. What's Charoset?
Something you don't pay off.
Something you don't Pesach. Could that be wrong? No. No, what's Charoset? Apple, nuts, cement. Oh my God. Don't eat cement at the Seder or any other time. The American, the Surgeon General does not recommend eating cement on Passover or any other time of year.
Did he say that?
Could that be wrong? So they would bring in front of the matzah and the chazeres and the charoset, ushnei tavshilin, and at least 2 cooked dishes, maybe a piece of brisket and a piece of chicken or something, or maybe a potato kugel, I don't know. Even though afal pi she'ein charoset mitzvah, they would bring him the charoset, even though there's no mitzvah in eating charoset. Is there a mitzvah to eat matzah?
Yes.
By the way, let's go over quickly. Let's just go very quickly over. What are the 4 main mitzvahs at the Seder? Let's go quickly. Try to go in order if we can, but No. I'm talking today. When we're going to have our Seder this year, if God forbid Mashiach's not here, we're going to sit down at the Seder. We're going to have around us glasses and plates and matzahs and all sorts of different stuff, and hopefully some good kugels and some good brisket, whatever else it is. There are primarily 4 mitzvahs for the night. What are they? Wine. 4 cups of wine.
Seder,
Seder, say more. What do you mean Seder?
like reciting what happened to your family.
Dam, Sardea.
Oh, so the Seder, meaning to tell the story of the Exodus.
Yes.
The Haggadah, right? And the Stelter. So we have so far the 4 cups of wine. Those are a rabbinic command.
4 questions.
Are there 4 questions?
Wait, you're trying
There's
to,
more than 4.
can I?
There's always questions and amount of questions.
1 second. Oh, eating.
4 mitzvahs?
Are you talking about the thing?
What?
If your finger-
Danielle, the question is, what are the 4 main mitzvahs at the Seder? One second. It's too much chaos. 1 second. Stop. We said so far, Mati said 4 cups of wine. Then Dylan said, we're counting the story of the Exodus. Now, Paige said eating matzah. And we have 1 left.
Meal.
Meal is not a mitzvah to eat the meal per se that's unique to the Seder. Moral.
So the Torah sandwich.
Coke sandwich, moral, okay, but either way, there's a debate about how you're supposed to eat the moral. Do you eat the moral alone? Do you eat it with matzah? That's why we have a korok sandwich. That's why we have just plain matzah, but moral in general. So again, there are 4 main mitzvahs at the Seder. Just reviewing for the sake of everyone to remember. It's good to review. 2 of them are biblical in nature. 2 of them are rabbinic in nature. The 2 biblical ones are eating matzah. How do I know that's a biblical commandment? Because it says in the Bible, "Va'erev toichlu matzos." In the night, you're going to eat matzah. Then number 2, there is a biblical commandment to tell the story of the Exodus, beginning with the slavery and leading to the Exodus. Right? That's our vodim hayinu l'paro b'mitzrayim. We were slaves, and then Hashem took us out. We became free. Then there's a mitzvah number 3 is rabbinic, that it's to drink 4 cups of wine, and they're not 4 pounding 4 cups one after the other. They're meant to be at 4 separate stages through the Seder. It's not a mitzvah to get drunk. It's a mitzvah to have 4 cups of wine.
Yeah.
Okay, it might end up that you're a little bit tipsy at the end of the Seder, but it's not Purim. It's not Purim. There's no mitzvah to get drunk at the Seder. In fact, quite to the contrary, one should be able to remain cognizant so they can do the other mitzvahs. And then 4th, last but not least, is another rabbinic commandment, at least nowadays, to eat the maror. Okay, so the Mishnah says that they would bring in front of the leader of the Seder matzah and chazeres and charoset. And even though charoset is not a mitzvah, however, the Mishnah continues, Rebbe Lozer bar Tzodek Oimer, yes, it is a mitzvah. So it is a machlok. This is a debate in the Mishnah. Is charoset a mitzvah or is it not a mitzvah? And we're going to come later to a possible practical difference. But does anyone want to put their foot into the water and offer what you might think, what might be a practical difference, whether charoset is a mitzvah or it's not a mitzvah? Having to do it. Okay. Good. Yes.
Having to make a blessing if you
Oh,
did it.
make a bracha. What do we do before we do a mitzvah? Make a bracha. You make a bracha before you eat the matzah. You make a bracha before you eat the moror. You make a bracha before you shake lulav on sukkahs, etc.
Two different types of brachas. We make a bracha on a mitzvah and a bracha of like thanks.
That's very good. That's correct.
So we make a bracha anyway. Yeah,
Say it again. What?
we make a bracha anyways.
On what?
Thanking God.
Right. So that we already fulfilled when we ate the karkas. Okay. Now the Mishnah continues, or rather the Gemara continues in Pesachim and says as follows. It quotes the Mishnah, even though Afal Pishin Charoset mitzvah, it's not a mitzvah. Bring it to the leader of the seder anyway. So frek the Gemara asks the obvious question. V'iloi mitzvah mishum by ma'asila. 1 second. If it's not a mitzvah, then why are you bringing it to him? What is it going to accomplish if it's not a mitzvah? So the Gemara answers, Mishum Kafa. There's some type of poison, apparently, or perhaps other translations might render this as some type of worm in the maror, and this charoset will somehow neutralize that poison and or worm, whatever it is exactly. So it's not a mitzvah, it's actually, in a sense, more important than a mitzvah. We're having charoset because it might be dangerous if we don't, because there's some kind of worm or some kind of poison. I don't know. There's different interpretations of what it means in the maror, and we need to put the charoset on it to somehow neutralize that potential danger. So it's not a mitzvah, but we have a good reason to bring charoset to the leader of the seder. You with me so far? Okay.
Anybody give me something.
Crazy concept. Why?
Like that sounds not like something that you want to eat.
It reminds me.
Yeah.
It reminds me.
More about it says more on this one. Talking about.
I'm
It
listening.
reminds me of the idea of my macaroon, or the idea also that you shouldn't leave anything uncovered overnight. It was something that was really codified with the halacha for safety. It's something we continue now for the kids. And I appreciate that. Charoset is really good too. I don't know if it tastes like your guys.
Oh, 1 second. We didn't get to the Rambam's recipe.
Oh, right.
Easy. I said it's gonna be a recipe.
I wonder if it's the same one.
Oh, maybe.
I was confused for a second because usually something is horseradish and horseradish is like clears out, you know. Like
Yeah.
it's spicy food. So I think he's probably talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, she's not talking about horseradish.
Could be talking about lettuce. Definitely possible.
Probably more like.
Now, let's move on to the second page. What about the opinion in the Mishnah by Rebbe Elazar Bar Tzadok, who says that charoset is a mitzvah? So the Gemara asks, my mitzvah, which mitzvah exactly? Matzah, I know what mitzvah that is. Morah, I know what mitzvah that is. Shaking lulav on sukkahs, I know what mitzvah that is. Lighting the Hanukkah candle, I know what mitzvah that is. What mitzvah is it to have charoset? So the Gemara answers, 2 answers. Reb Levi Omer, Zeichel tapuach, it reminds us of the apple. Which apple? Well, it says in the Song of Songs, Tachas hatapuach oirarticho, that I aroused you, I awakened you under the apple tree. And that verse in the Song of Songs is an allusion to the Exodus from Egypt. So eating charoset, whose main ingredient is apples, Rabbi Levi says in the Talmud, that's a mitzvah because it's reminding us of the Exodus. Second answer, Rabbi Yochanan says, Zecher Latit. It reminds us of someone said before, cement. We might translate it as mortar, or I think perhaps most accurately, we would translate it as clay. I think. It's Queens. They're here for you. Oh, I went for a swim today down by the Y on 108, and there were cop cars all over the place. It's not recommended to swim that lake there.
Wait, did you say a lake?
I said down by the Y,
Oh, I thought it was a lake. I was like, sorry.
down by the river. Saw my millions. Yeah,
Wait, I want to wait.
on 108, and there were cops all over the place. They're arresting some girl or something. She was screeching. Okay.
Where do you swim? In a pool? What was it?
Well, I like to call it a pool. It's really just my bathtub, but I have a good imagination.
At 5 p.m.
I'm getting excited.
No, there is a pool.
There is a
That's
pool.
why.
First of all, it's a pool of Queens.
There is a pool on couch.
I mean, an outside pool.
No.
It's good weather today. I could have gone for a swim.
Is this so complicated?
I live near there.
Well, next time I'll stop by and say hi. Thanks for the invitation. What for dinner? Okay,
Deeper eyes.
good. So we're finding out that Charoset either is a mitzvah or it's not a mitzvah. If it's not a mitzvah, it's really important because there's some kind of danger in the moror, and we want to dip it into the Charoset somehow. Please don't ask me to explain it scientifically. Somehow neutralizes the dangerous property in the moror. Option number one. Option number two, Rabbi Elazar Bar told it is a mitzvah. What mitzvah is it? Two opinions. It's either the mitzvah that reminds us of the apple tree in Egypt under which we sat and we rested in before we go into the Exodus. Under the apple tree, I awakened you. It's actually an allusion, a reference to the Jewish people leaving Egypt. Or the second answer, that no, Charoset reminds us of the mortar or the clay that we use to make the bricks, the backbreaking labor. Therefore, the Gemara continues, you have to fulfill both opinions. We prepare the Charoset tart, like an apple, and we make it thick also, like the clay or the mortar. Now we're ready for the moment we've all been waiting for, especially Daniela, which is Rambam's recipe.
Yes.
Also, I need you to pay attention to the Rambam, please, not just because he's the Rambam, and I love the Rambam, and we all love the Rambam. Who doesn't love the Rambam? But also because I want you to notice how the Rambam rules. We'll get to that. I want you to notice how the Rambam paskins. How does he rule based on the Mishnah? Remember, in the Mishnah, there's a debate. Charoset is a mitzvah? Yes. Charoset is a mitzvah? No. There's a debate. How does the Rambam paskin? Let's take a look. This is in chapter 7 of the Rambam's laws for Pesach. Ha-charoset mitzvah divrei seifim zecher latit. The Charoset is a mitzvah that reminds us of the clay, the clay with which we worked, our forefathers worked in Egypt. So how did he paskin? How did he rule? It's a mitzvah or not? This is the easiest question that will ever be asked. Yes, correct. How do you know that?
Because it commemorates
Because-
stuff.
No, because it says mitzvah. Charoset is mitzvah.
Oh,
That's why it's the easiest question ever be asked. Does Rambam say it's a mitzvah or not? Yes. It's a mitzvah. How do I know? Because he says it's a mitzvah. And it reminds us of the clay. Now, here's the pièce de résistance. How do you make Charoset? Now we're going to see if he was Sephardi or Ashkenazi, even though we probably already know. Rambam knew. Rambam was Sephardi or Ashkenazi? Sephardi. Of course it's Sephardi. Sephardi. Of course it's Sephardi. What kind of crazy question is that? Of course it's Sephardi. By the way, I was reading a Haggadah commentary today from Sfarad. Where's that? Spain. And officially it was presenting a commentary of Sephardic Jews. But newsflash, the Jew who wrote it came from a descendant. He was actually Ashkenazi. And all the people he quotes basically are Ashkenazi. So it was basically an Ashkenazi commentary in Spain. Anyway, how do you make Charoset? Says the Rambam. Looking tomorrow, you take dates, or grogros, or figs, dried figs, or tzimukin, or raisins, and you crush them. But you mix a little vinegar in, and you put some spices into them. Why do you put the spices? Just like the clay is mixed into the straw. And you place it on the table at the Seder. Very flavorful. Ashkenazim, we basically just do apple, nuts, like walnuts or something. Some people put a little cinnamon or something. Some people don't. A little bit of wine. Why do you put the wine in? Why do you put the wine in?
Together.
Blood, sweat, tears. Blood, sweat,
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Mine is sort of the face, the whole mixture,
Yeah, also remember the Mishnah said you got to make it thick. So you pour a little wine into,
make it mixable.
yeah.
I don't know. I just know.
You know, they use Rambam uses.
You have to start eating Sephardi. Rambam's recipe won't be so bad.
Rambam uses.
Sounds pretty bad actually with the rings.
No, let me use mine. Mine is basically, my grandmother's recipe is basically a jumble of everything.
I
A
hear it.
little bit of dried fruit, a little bit of apple, cinnamon.
I would never
Wine.
eat it because I was like, it's. But I didn't know it was a mitzvah.
Oh,
Well, we didn't finish
Rambam
that.
says it's a mitzvah.
Do we know yet? Are we there?
Rambam says it's a mitzvah. Now, 1 second, guys. Here's where it gets complicated. Rambam didn't just write the book called the Mishnah Torah. He wrote other books too. One of them is a commentary on the Mishnah. And guess what? In the commentary on the Mishnah, he changes his mind. He contradicts himself. And look in the next verse, Lechem Mishnah. Lechem Mishnah is a commentary on the Rambam. And he says over there an interesting thing. Kan posek Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. Here in the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam rules like Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok in the Mishnah, who says that Charoset is a mitzvah. But in his commentary in the Mishnah, he says the opposite, that it's not a mitzvah. However, important point. Over there, in the Pirush Mishnah, he says that the Divrei Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok tzorech loymar shekinshon b'mitzoysa b'tzivonu ala chilas charoisas. That according to Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, who says that Charoset is a mitzvah, what do we do before we do a mitzvah? We say a bracha. So he says that according to Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, who he rules like him in the Mishnah Torah, but not in the commentary of the Mishnah, you have to say a bracha. Which bracha would you say? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, like any other bracha, al achilat charoset, for eating charoset. However, ve'ein halacha kamoisai, but the halacha is not like Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. So the Rambam a little bit contradicts himself. In one place he says that it is the halacha, it is a mitzvah. In another place he says it is not a mitzvah. Let's take a look at the next verse. The Avud Raham, who was also smart. The Avud Raham writes, so 1 second. Why don't we say a bracha on Charoset? It's delicious if you're Sephardi. If you're from South Africa, apparently it's not so delicious. No. Why don't we say a bracha on Charoset if it's a mitzvah? Rambam writes in one place it's a mitzvah. Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok in the Mishnah says that it's a mitzvah. No, so why don't we say a bracha? Comes the Avud Raham, another Sephardic sage, and he says, V'hatam, the reason she'ein mevorchin ala charosis, v'afal pishi mitzvah divrei seifrim, he also rules like the Rambam that it is a mitzvah, but we don't say a bracha anyway. Why? Bipnei shehi tefela lekarpas. It is secondary to the karpas. And the karpas, I already said a bracha. So I don't need to say another bracha. I said a bracha for karpas, the vegetable dipping in the salt water. That will cover my charoset. And the rule is from the Mishnah in brachos, v'tanan, kol shu ikir v'imoy tefela. Anytime you have two items together, two food items together, and one of them is the main food item, the other item is secondary. In the language of halacha, that's ikr and tafel, primary and secondary. You only recite a bracha on the primary food item, not on the secondary food item. Anybody have questions about that?
Well, why would Charoset be secondary to Karpas? And they're not the same bracha also.
Right, they're not the same bracha. Karpas would be Adama and the Charoset would be
But technically,
Ha'etz.
I guess Adama could cover
Correct.
eight, but why would Karpas be more important than Charoset? Because it comes first, or just because?
Yeah, you already said the bracha, so you're not going to say another bracha.
Okay. But then wouldn't we have to make an announcement that when you're saying the bracha on Karpas, have in mind the Charoset? Like we make that announcement for the Maror, but we
Yeah.
don't make that announcement for the Charoset.
Okay, it's a good point. What are we actually discussing? Which bracha would you say on Charoset?
Sure.
Huh?
That would be how 8.
But you just said all mitzvahs
Right.
Charoset.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 second.
All
There's different types of brachas, right? Let's talk about two types of brachas. One is what's called birchat hanehenin, a bracha of deriving pleasure. For example, before you ate your beef harayas or some of your spinach or your salad or tomatoes, you said a bracha. Break adama, break ha'etz, hamotzelachem ha'aretz, mizonos, whatever the correct bracha is. That's when you're eating food. and deriving benefit from the food. Here, we're speaking about a second type of bracha, which is birkat hamitzvot, birkat hamitzvos. What happened?
You
No,
married.
literally nothing.
We're talking about birkas hamitzvah, bracha for the mitzvah of charoses, not the bracha for eating the charoses. So where is the bracha of charoset secondary to anything? It's not secondary to the bracha for the mitzvah of karpas, because we didn't say a bracha for the mitzvah of karpas, because karpas is not a mitzvah. By the way, why do we have karpas?
Hold on. Not that.
It's not wrong what you said, but it's not.
So
It's
that
not
the children
not the
ask a question.
correct.
Oh, wait, actually,
Yeah.
I thought that's just like the default answer to any question of that.
Well,
Like,
our supposed to dip. Its purpose is like a vehicle to dip, right?
Right. And what are you doing that for?
There are a few different opinions, but also children to ask.
That exactly what
Everyone, the children, they just start jumping every time I bring out the balsamic vinegar. They can't handle it.
What?
We use balsamic vinegar. What?
What children?
No, I'm saying what child is excited by balsamic vinegar? We use wait, what do you guys, hold on.
The child inside of me is excited.
What?
The
Salt
child
water.
inside of me is excited about this.
Salt water. We don't use balsamic vinegar.
Well, sorry, look different. You guys don't understand. We don't.
So here,
Do you hit each other with scallions?
What?
Do you hit each other with?
It gets really violent.
so the question is that. Okay, the question is like this: that the discussion of which bracha we may say or charoset was not a discussion for the bracha for eating the food and filling up your stomach with it. That wasn't the issue. The issue was if it's a mitzvah, you have to say the bracha asher kiddishana the mitzvosav al achilas charoses. So why am I not saying that? So the Vudraham gives a different answer. It says because you said karpas already. Karpas wasn't a mitzvah anyway. All you said was berei piradama. So the berei piradama will cover your ha'etz for your charos. Great. What are the mitzvah part of it? So for that, let's take a look in the Maharal of Prague.
Can I ask you a quick
On the next
question?
page, of
Do we
course.
make a bracha on telling the story of the Exodus, which is one of the
No,
mitzvahs?
that's a great question. Why we don't say a bracha on telling the story, which was a biblical commandment. And also to add to the question, we also don't say a bracha on drinking 4 cups of wine, which is a rabbinic mitzvah.
Say a bracha on the wine, but not the mitzvah.
We
of
say a
it.
bracha on the wine, but not the bracha. Meaning, why don't, before we make kiddush, say, guys, we're about to do a mitzvah of drinking the first of the 4 cups of wine. Let's say a bracha, which is a rabbinic commandment. Let's say a bracha, asher kiddushan mitzvotav v'tzivano al shtiyat arba kosot. For drinking 4 cups of wine, we should say that bracha, but we don't. And likewise, we should say a bracha before telling the story in Maki. We should say a bracha, asher kiddushan mitzvotav v'tzivano al sipur yitziat mitzrayim. For telling us, we don't say that bracha either. That's not the topic for tonight's class. Maybe we'll get to it later if we have time. So let's leave that aside for now. Those are excellent questions.
Well, it's tied into the same question of the
Could
Charoset.
it be because they take a long time?
That actually is a good answer. That is a good answer, yes. You have to flesh out a little bit more, like, so what? It takes a long time. So what? You're not wrong, by the way. You're like, what's the big deal if it takes a long time? How long?
It could take literally hours. So
Right. Or less.
it's a bit awkward if you're like, okay, doing a mitzvah for drinking 4 cups of wine, but then you only finish the mitzvah like 4 hours later.
Okay. It's a good point.
Right, because there's interruptions.
You do say bracha for every cup of wine. So each one is. I'm sure there's like some argument that each one is a separate mitzvah and together completes a bigger mitzvah, something like that.
Well, you have to drink all 4 cups.
Yes.
And there's actually 2 brachas for every cup, actually, if you think about it. Each cup has, first of all, borei pri hagafen. Number 1. Number 2, each cup is said in conjunction with another bracha. First cup is kiddush. So you say the bracha of Borei Pri Hagafen, you also say the bracha of Kiddush. The second cup is you say a Borei Pri Hagafen, and that's from Magid. You also say the bracha Asher Golanu, B'Golas Havisenu, that He redeemed us. The third cup you say Borei Pri Hagafen, and you say it on Birkat Hamazon, on benching. And the fourth cup, what do we say the fourth cup on? I'm losing track of my thought process over here. Fourth cup, you say Gofen.
By benching, no?
After benching.
Hala.
And hollow, yeah, and the hollow. Okay. So the Gvuras Hashem, which is the Maharal of Prague. Anybody been to Prague? Amazingly, the only other person in the room who was in Prague was there at the same time as me. That's crazy. No way. And we did go to the Maharal's shul, where he davened. It's called the Altnu shul, which is a Yiddish word. It's two words. It's, yes, that's right. The Altnu shul, because I guess it was the old shul, and then they renovated it or something. That was like 500 years ago, or something. I think that I don't know how long
I
ago.
think
it
it was a new shul, then there was another new shul, then this became the old new shul.
Oh, maybe you're right. You're right. And we also went to his gravesite there in Prague as well. Anyway, he wrote many, many books. He's most famous for having made a Golem, but really, yeah, of course. But he should be most famous for all the books he wrote. They were unbelievable books. So he says as follows. He's bothered. He's actually whatever. Why do we not say the bracha of Al Achilat Charoset? Says the Avudraham, it's tafel, it's secondary to another bracha. So he says the bracha of Karfas. But what it's really secondary to is the bracha of Al Achilat Maror. Well, when you're taking the maror, you're saying the bracha of Al Achilas Maror, for eating maror. And you might think you have to also say a bracha for Al Achilas Charoses, but we don't.
That makes sense with the opinion that says the purpose of the charoset is to neutralize the maror, because that would also
Not to neutralize the maror, neutralize some type of poison or worm in the maror.
Okay, but either way, the charoset is serving the maror, meaning the maror seems to be more important.
Oh, so that's basically what the Maharal says. We give a little bit of a spiritual explanation. It says like this. What is so bad about hard work? I mean, we always say, you know what the Egyptians did to us? They made us work hard. They made us work hard.
No compensation.
You say, oh, slavery's pretty bad. As if you would know.
Well, when we read about it.
She's heard.
You've heard. You've heard it's really bad. It's like, so now one second. You're right.
It's all Taurus.
Wow. So really.
It's a good
Now-
answer, come on.
Paige, you're right. Slavery is not so yishma.
Yeah.
But what's really so bad about hard work? Says the Maharal, nothing. Hard work is not bad in and of itself. Meaning, is that all you have to complain about? You have to work hard? Come on. Is that really the bitterness that we experienced in Egypt? Is that really why we're eating more? Because we had to work hard? No. So maror alone is not really expressing the full bitterness of the slavery in Egypt. In order to fully express what the bitterness actually was, we add charoset. And the charoset is going to supplement and complement, not complement, for those of you who know how to spell, complement, complement. It's going to supplement and complement the maror. The main thing is the maror. The maror means bitterness. But says the Maharal, newsflash, maror on its own symbolizes hard labor. And I'm sorry, but hard labor is not the end of the world. I know Paige says slavery is pretty bad stuff. But hard labor on its own.
Is there anyone who disagrees with me? My stance on slavery.
Yeah, curious. Yes.
Just
Wait, what about like
slavery's
the other
high,
side?
yo.
Apparently the rabbis. Apparently Judaism.
One page, listen to this. Listen to this. So listen to this. So the Maharal is saying that hard labor, in and of itself, he might not have been concerned with PC, by the way. In fact, he wasn't. You know why? Because PC didn't exist. There was no such thing. So he didn't have to be concerned with it.
He wasn't worried about political corruption.
That there probably was back then.
I'm sure it did.
Political correctness
Yeah.
did not exist 300, 500 years ago.
Why do you think it didn't?
I don't think it didn't. It's a modern, it's a
Phenomenon.
new thing to be, you have to be careful what you say. People said what they thought. Now it doesn't.
I think
offend
people
anybody.
still have to be careful. I mean, look what happened. I mean,
Galileo.
I was gonna say Jesus, but if that's true,
That's not
like
political. Galileo.
he said some things that the Romans didn't agree with, and they killed him.
Okay, anyway, the point is not the political correctness. The point is like this. So the Maral says,
But what about like that they killed their babies and stuff? That's pretty.
just hear me out, okay? Hear me out. The Maral says like this, that even though the Mora represents hard labor and slavery, and yes, that's bad. Everyone agrees it's bad, but it's not what was actually so bitter about the slavery. It wasn't the slavery in and of itself. It wasn't the hard backbreaking labor in and of itself. It was the Charoset. The Charoset is the clay, which is the real backbreaking labor. The Maral says there's no harder labor, nothing as difficult as working with clay. Now, what's so difficult about working with clay? Two things. One point from the Maral, but first point from a friend of mine who lives in Canada, a Chabad rabbi, and he told me that sometimes he's called upon to be involved with a Jewish burial. He doesn't live in a place like New York. It's, harder to find people that help with that type of thing. And he told me that in one of the cemeteries, or the cemetery, the Jewish cemetery, part of the ground is clay. And it's exceedingly difficult to penetrate with a shovel, and it's heavy, and it's very, very hard to work with. Number one. But number two, and this is the Maral's point, that working with clay is beneath a person's dignity. It's not I don't mean clay like making pottery and like a fancy, pottery studio. When a person is debased through labor, it's not the labor itself that's the problem. It's how they're treated when they do it. It's how they're debased. You've seen the picture, I'm sure, of the gate of Auschwitz. Arbeit macht frei. Hard work will set you free. Like it's like they're taunting, debasing. It wasn't just the hard work, it was the way it was carried out in a dehumanizing manner, in a debasing manner. So the hard labor in and of itself, okay, you have to work hard. I get it. Slavery, bad, hard labor, bad, but that's not what actually was so bad about the Egyptian servitude. What was really so bad about it, says the Maharal, was the debased nature of that work, how they degraded us, how they stripped us of our humanity. Right? It's similar to the Nazis, mashma. They literally would strip people, take their clothes off. Why? Totally just to debase them, to embarrass them. That was so difficult about the labor, and that's what the Charoset contributes to the moral. It fully expresses what the bitterness actually was. So therefore, the blessing for the Charoset is not necessary because it's merely supplemental to the maror. It's, so to speak, fleshing out and showing us what is the true bitterness. Bitterness, yes, maror is bitterness, but the real bitterness of the Egyptian slavery was that it was work that was beneath our dignity. It was work that we were debased through that work. And when a person is stripped of their humanity, that is bitter. And that's the true bitterness of Egypt. And that's why we have Charoset. And that's why we don't need to say a bracha on Charoset, because what it's really doing is coming to supplement the moror and express what the moror actually is. What was the bitterness actually? Any comments or questions about this? Now I want to show you. I already used the phrase pièce de résistance once in this class. I'm going to use it a second time now. Now I want to show you the real pièce de résistance. Speak French, probably, right?
No,
Okay.
but I know that expression.
That's a great expression. If you could work that into conversation. Pièce de résistance. It literally translates as pièce is the piece of resistance. But what it really means is the chef's kiss, the cherry on top. That's what it means. Pièce de résistance. So it means like this. Here I have a quotation from the instructions in the Haggadah that was authored by the first Chabad Rebbe, the same person who wrote the, Emily? Tanya. So he also wrote a Siddur. He wrote a Siddur, he compiled the prayers in the Siddur and wrote instructions in the Siddur, and that includes a Haggadah. And he says over here, Moror. Let's read his instruction for the Moror. Take a piece of matzah, says dip it in the Charoset. Is that a mitzvah?
No.
Unclear.
Debatable. Let's go with that it is. Right? Could be. All of them shake off any of the extra charoset because you don't want to get rid of the bitter taste of the Moror after all. Now, zone in for just a few seconds here while we go with this right here.
I don't think Charoset sweet.
We'll get to that one second. Because the apple.
Thing like, why do we choose to make it a sweet?
Why do we?
Yeah, we could use bitter to make it. You know what I'm saying?
No, because going back to the Mishnah, or the Gemara rather, it reminds us of the apple tree. So I have apples in it, which really are not sweet. They're actually really
But
tart.
Rambam is using like raisins and dates.
Yeah, the Rambam was Sephardi. Sephardim are sweet. So then he says like this: V'yavorech bracha zu, and say this blessing. And beneath that is printed the blessing of al achilas Moror. Now let me ask you a question. See those last three words there? V'yavorech bracha zu, and say this bracha. Pretend you're an editor. Take off the last two words. Does anything change? Bracha zu, this bracha. Just say v'yavorech and recite and bless. Which bracha are you going to say? One second. You're going to say whichever bracha is printed in your Haggadah, right? Which is the bracha of al achilas Moror. So what is this one?
Don't say any other version. Don't say any other bracha. Don't add the bracha for Charoset. Say this one.
You got it. He could have just said v'yavorech and recite the blessing. Which blessing? The one printed in your Haggadah, which is al achilas Moror. But instead he writes v'yavorech bracha zu. Say this blessing. It's repetitive. But as Page correctly explains, it's not repetitive. He's saying, say this blessing and only this blessing, because you might have thought that you should say a blessing on the Charoset, al achilas Charoset. So comes the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, who also wrote the Tanya, and says, no, say only this bracha, not any other bracha, which you might have thought to say the bracha for eating Charoset, which very well may be a mitzvah. And that, my friends, is the conclusion of our discussion on Rambam's recipe on the Charoset mitzvah. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
What does this have to do with Mezuzah? Can we draw?
I was hoping no one would ask me that.
Sorry.
It's okay. You could ask it anyway. I was hoping no one would ask. But you could ask it anyway.
Give an answer.
I don't have an answer, no. Because
You just wanted to teach it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I didn't have anything like ready to go about the Mezuzah. But this was interesting to me, and I enjoyed it, so I thought I would share.
Don't